Start out with the introduction here. Just see the red light, it's recording. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll start by reading the remote participation meeting notice pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing limitation on the number of people that may gather in one location. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information such as instructions and guidelines for remote by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website at www.yarmouth.ma.us. For the public portion of this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or listen and participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner. Zoom.us, click on join meeting and enter the meeting ID 387-448-6493. with password 264163. So we will call this meeting to order and we will look at the first agenda item, which for tonight is going to be public comment in minutes. I guess I'll first start where I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the last session.
We don't have the minutes.
We don't have the minutes.
No.
Okay. So I guess we will push that to our next meeting and we will review minutes from today and minutes from last in our next meeting, which will, I guess at this point, will be in December. Okay, so then the next item here is public comment. Do we have any members of the public
Nope.
here for comment?
No, no one's on anymore.
Okay, so I guess we are going to hand this over. I guess Jeff Colby, who is here from the Department of Public Works, will be providing us an update on Sandy Pond Recreation Area Splash Pad. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hopefully
Welcome.
you can hear me.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great.
We have a CPA application in for phase one of the Sandy Pond project. I've talked with the committee a couple of times about priorities and what that looks like. I wasn't planning to move anything forward at this fall's town meeting, thinking that the spring, as we get into the CPA cycle, would be a little bit better. We've also got a lot of projects in the queue right now, but something changed over the summer in that the selectmen's goals reflected that in two locations in their goals, that the splash pad at Sandy Pond was a high priority for them. So it was made clear to me that we needed to move that piece forward. And so that's what is before. So we went to CPA and had that piece moved forward toward the November town meeting. So that piece of the project is before the town meeting. It's one of the CPA articles. And I did forward a copy of the conceptual plan. Hopefully you all received that, which does show the inclusive playground as well as the splash pad in the locations that we'd previously discussed, over near the restroom facility at Sandy Pond, kind of in the back area, if you will. So it kind of gives you an idea of what where that could fit. I think in the past when I've talked with the committee about these projects, you were supportive, although as far as priorities go, I know that you wanted to see the inclusive playground go forward first. And that is an item that's still before CPA, but that's on the spring town meeting warrant, or at least it's in the queue for that. They haven't voted on their spring items yet, but that is a component that's for the spring. So the only reason to separate these as the proposal stands now is just to accelerate the component relative to the selectmen's goals. So that's really where that stands. We're still looking at approximately $500,000 for the splash pad and roughly $750,000 for the inclusive playground. That inclusive playground does include some components of paving and walkway, specifically paving that would increase the number of handicap spots near the playground. So that's a little bit more in cost. So that's kind of where that stands. Also, if you do have the conceptual plan before you, you'll see that the inclusive playground is a little bit bigger area. It's probably 50% bigger than the splash pad. So for those reasons, it's a little bit more money. But even last year when we were looking at both of these together, it was around a $1.25 million first phase, if you will. And we know that there's many other elements of Sandy Pond that are in parts of future phases. So this really is just the first step of what will be several, I'm sure. So that's the project generally. At this point, it's still very conceptual. Excuse me, because we haven't put a lot of definition behind that. The request is for finishing the plans, bid specifications, and construction. So kind of all of those components associated with the project. That's also something that adds to the cost as well. We don't have a final plan or a final engineer's estimate to go by. Everything is preliminary. I have talked with CDM Smith about the elements of this project. So they've had a chance to update their cost estimates, do a little bit of research relative to the splash pad and what that looks like for recharge of the water, what that might look like as far as the cost component with the different portions. We are looking at something that's roughly 2,000 square feet for a splash pad. And it would be a user activated type of facility. It wouldn't have water that goes all the time. That that would be a little excessive. Even at a user activated level, the estimates are that it's still going to use a significant amount of water. But I did talk with the health agent about what that would look like as far as does it need a recirculating type of filter system, or can it simply be recharged into the ground? He deals with a lot of Title V systems, and this is not something that's clearly included in Title V. So he was comfortable with a relatively simple recharge system back into the ground, as long as it was infiltration, so that the water table would continue to benefit from the water being recycled back into the ground, and did not think that this facility needed any kind of recirculating type of filter system with it. There's no standing water. There is several features that would be again, user activated kind of spray or splash type of features. Again, it's a very conceptual design at this point, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions the committee might have.
My name is Paul Degnan, and we've talked about this at prior meetings. And it was, I believe, the priority of the Recreation Commission to move forward with the all-inclusive playground before we would consider a splash pad. And we had issues about the recycling of water. Another concern, I think, was the fact that we have so many beaches and access to water refreshment, if you will, that it seemed a luxury item, I guess. And for some reason, it's a priority for some of the administrators and commissioners. But I'm not speaking for the entire commission, but I think our consensus before was to move forward first with the all-inclusive playground. Now, I have to say that I just got back from Henderson, Nevada. I drove across country and back, and Henderson is one of the fourth fastest growing city in the country. And I stayed with my son and my new grandchild out there, and they had splash pads in the parks areas. There's probably, in the town of Henderson, there's probably 3 or 4 splash pads, and they're very popular and they do well. This year is different. I mean, they've even taken the rims off the basketball courts due to the pandemic. So it's a different issue this year than it may be when they installed their splash pads, but also they don't have an ocean out there, or a Lake Mead is a drive away. So I think the demand and the use is greater there. And I'm wondering what the use would be in our town. And I'm sure it's kind of sexy in the sense that it's different. It's something we've never had before. And I think it would be of great interest, not only for our residents, but for visitors as well. So I'm kind of, as you can tell, maybe a little bit on the fence, but I'm just sort of reminding those on the call that we had some opposition to this before as a priority. And I think as a commission, we weren't unanimously in favor by any means. It was kind of a split vote. I feel free to check me on that if I'm mistaken.
I have to agree with you, Paul. My recollection is that we all decided we didn't want a splash pad because of the fact that we don't know anything about the maintenance. We don't know if there's going to be personnel required to man the facility. Safety issues, the whole thing with the water park in Bourne, where there was that huge claim made against the town. The water consumption is a factor we really don't know. I guess we're not paying for the water, but it sure seems like there's going to be an awful lot of water sucked out of our town going into this splash pad. And the other thing is limited use, as you just stated. I mean, when are we going to be able to use it? From May until early September? And that's like a lot of money for a little use. And as Paul just said, we got water all around us. So I think my recollection is, and I wish the other board members were here, but we're not in favor at all of the splash pad. We wanted to work on the playground and possibly enlarge the playground to take over the splash pad's footprint. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Well, Josh, do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I guess my piece here is that I wasn't at the last meeting last month. I guess that update, Jeff, was great. I appreciate the update. I guess what is the next step? I mean, it's nice that we know that, but I mean, as a commission, I mean, is there a decision to be made? Is there anything we need to do? It sounds like that they're already going through with this phase one. It's going to be at the fall town meeting. I'm not sure what our influence is or if we have a decision to make. I mean, it sounds like that's the decision that was made.
Yeah, the selectmen have decided to move this forward. Certainly I'm touching base with all the entities that might have some jurisdiction here or input, conservation, Board of Health, yourself, of course. And that's kind of where that stands. It is one of the articles for town meeting. I forget exactly which one. I think all the CPA articles are lumped together, and there's 3 or 4 of them. This is one. It is a standalone, separate one. It's my understanding from most of those articles are ones that had to be moved forward and couldn't wait till the spring, such as some of the housekeeping ones that weren't moved on in this past spring when we didn't do a lot of things other than just the operating budget.
Sure.
So that's, kind of where that stands. I'm sure that, this is something we, want to try to address concerns the committee has. I did want to make sure that, you were aware that playground component is moving forward. That's, I don't have any reason to believe it won't be on the spring town meeting. It's an application before CPA right now for funding.
Sure.
And I met with them on some other projects just this afternoon, and they seem to have sufficient funds to cover these types of things.
Great.
So that's kind of where that stands. I'll certainly keep the committee updated or through Amy as far as how things are going.
I guess one question I would have is, let's assume for a moment that the phase one is voted down. Does that then negate the ability to move forward with, does phase one have to be approved for the inclusive playground to also be included, or can one move without the other?
No, this is actually not that it was necessarily intended to be separated to try to garner support for one versus the other, but because they are separated, one is being moved at the November town meeting and one will be presumably in the April town meeting. They are separate.
Okay, cool.
So if one doesn't go forward, the other one can.
Okay.
It's not like they were lumped together. If we had continued to have one $1.25 million request that covered everything and it got
Yeah.
shot down, then we'd be
Yeah.
kind of rethinking things. But
Sure.
it isn't necessarily a bad approach. It's, kind of pushing things
No.
through very quickly, in my opinion. But it's not a bad approach necessarily to separate them. We'll certainly get to see the community's
Yeah.
support for one or the other.
So,
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
Jeff, what would happen if it did not pass in November? That means that the playground would possibly enlarge to take over some space? Or, I mean, what would we do with the allocated space?
Well, that's a great question. In the master plan that we've been working from, it showed both entities, both the splash pad and the playground in some configuration. Obviously, those can be changed in size and moved around somewhat. When I last met with the committee, what we were talking about was splash pad identified on the plan and showing it future. And so it was in the plan as a future element and moving forward with the playground. But it was on the conceptual plan. It's just a matter of, shading. One was shown as an active project, another one was shown as a future project. So it really could, be somewhat presumptive to say, would the playground get bigger and displace the splash pad? I can't really say. All I
Yeah.
know is we're moving one piece forward now, and we'll see how that goes. Those are discussions that can be happen, later once we know kind of where the chips are falling, I guess.
Amy,
I have
do you
to say
any
this, that I-
recollection of our past conversations about this subject?
What was that? I missed that last piece.
Amy, do you have any recollection of past discussions about this subject?
Yeah, I mean, like, was it last fall? Was it last fall this kind of all came to light, or was it in the spring? I mean, my timeline is a little bit.
It was pre-COVID, so
Yeah,
it was. I think the last time I met with the committee was probably November or December last year, maybe.
Yeah, and so, I mean, as to what Jeff said, as his recollection is saying, is what we were moving forward with phase one was, I believe, what we wanted for phase one, I should say, the commission wanted was the playground, and I believe bathrooms. Was that on phase one? Was that on? I'm trying to remember.
No, that was a much bigger ticket item as far as cost goes. That was something that was.
Yeah.
next
So, but I know that obviously the inclusive playground was the big push to be chosen. It had a choice to be made, but I believe the splash pad, as Jeff is saying, was always, it never left the planning. It was just the inclusive playground was what the commission wanted first, was
Right.
the priority. So.
Yeah, I have to echo that. I think, I'm wondering what the Board of Selectmen is looking for from the Parks and Rec Commission. We've expressed our concerns about this and our priority of having the all-inclusive playground first, and they went ahead with the splash pad. We expressed, and there's still a bad taste in my mouth from this prior to the summer beach season, when we expressed a concern for public health safety reasons to distance gatherings at our beaches to be 10 feet, and they changed it and moved it to 6 feet, the selectmen did. We thought that it would be safer to have, as most towns around the Cape were having 50% capacity of cars in their parking lots, and they chose with full capacity. So I don't know what the selectmen want us to do. They just want us to rubber stamp this idea. I don't know if we need to bring this to a vote and say we're opposed to prioritizing the splash pad over the all-inclusive playground, or if it makes any difference to the selectmen at all what we think, because I've got sort of a bad taste in my mouth from recent experiences with their desires conflicting with us. And why do we even exist if they're not going to listen to us?
I think, I mean, and Jeff, from what I'm taking for this, if this is the way the commission feels, I think that obviously town meeting would be where to go and make your feelings made during that article, correct, Jeff? That would be the time?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that the committee could do. You could take a position and vote it and then just share it at town meeting, that the committee, And if you don't have enough members now, you could wait till the next meeting or have a meeting before town meeting, but you could, express it more formally to the selectmen ahead of time. And I think there's a lot of different options you could do. Certainly could express your thoughts at town meeting. But I do think it probably would make sense, at least from my standpoint, for you guys to take an official position one way or another.
Yep.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay. Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Jeff or?
No, I mean, I appreciate the update. Yeah, and I think ultimately, obviously the town, residents will obviously make the decision. So, yeah. Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. So I guess, any other questions, Steve, at all? I think I've taken some notes. I'll share those at the end, or I'll share them after the meeting.
Okay. I'm taking notes also.
Okay, perfect. Great. Jeff, you're welcome to stay, or you can leave it. It's up to you.
No, I'll leave, but thank you for having me.
No, we
And,
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
happy
Jeff.
much.
to meet with you again. I'm sure we'll have
Yeah.
other meetings as things start to unfold. And we
Sure.
talked about either this phase or other phases or how things are going. It's really important to get your
Yeah.
feedback on these types of things.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See ya. All right, so we'll move to our 6:30 item, which is the director's items, Halloween event, winter programs, and budgets.
Yeah, I mean, and I would just say, just to finish up on that, I think
Sure.
that you guys' best bet really would obviously to take the formal position. And whether you want to draft a letter or an email to the selectmen, and then, as Jeff said, at town meeting is going to be when, to really, I think, formally get it out there.
Yeah, it's almost like, to me, it's almost like we have to ask around a little bit. I mean, so the challenge is if we voiced our opposition, but we find that the public really wants it,
Yeah.
then that's not going to be politically good for this team. So it's almost like I feel like we need to take the temperature and ask some people in the town, like residents, like what they think. And if we legitimately think that there's support for a splash pad, I think it might be in our best interest to listen to that and to think about it. Because like what Jeff said, it's not one thing or the other. It's just that they've broken, and I actually think it's good that they broke the splash pad and the inclusive separately. The issue that we have is that the splash pad is being voted on first versus the inclusive being voted first. I think ultimately, if the residents wanted both, if we can get both, I actually think the best route would be to break it up, because I think it'll be more palatable for people to vote on it in that respect, as it looks like a lower number, and I think people might see that and they might be more in favor of it. So I think the issue we have is just the order of it technically, and I think we could all do we really need a splash pad? Who knows? But I think if the residents really wanted it and they come out and they vote for it, I mean, I guess we'd have to support, the residents in that respect. But just personally, I think a splash pad's kind of silly. But that's just me. I don't have kids or anything. But I guess
I agree with you 100%. I think
Yeah.
it's not so much. A splash pad seems like
Yeah.
it's the
superfluous.
priority
Yeah.
for me. I think it's just a matter of
The order.
we decided to go forward with the all-inclusive playground for a lot of good reasons.
Yeah.
And then it could have been 2 or 3 people on the Board of Selectmen that have said, no, a splash pad would be great.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure it represents the best interest of the town.
No.
So my experience has been, if you put something into a second priority, the chances of that occurring are less than if you
Sure.
put it in the first priority.
Yeah.
So, I'm not so much against the splash pad, although I have concerns, especially when I heard Dennis speak about it. He was pretty eloquent
Oh yeah.
about the negatives of the splash pad.
Oh, 100%.
But if we were to push back the all-inclusive playground, I think the chances of that being a reality are diminished a little bit. And so it's, I think it should be our priority that we would, and we could say this at a town meeting,
Sure.
either as a commission or as individuals, that we think it's in the best interest of the town to move forward with first the all-inclusive playground to meet the needs of our challenged populations, and not go forward at this point in time with the priority item of the splash pad.
Yeah.
And especially for what has been said already earlier in the meeting in terms of it's such a seasonal event.
Yeah, yeah.
You're looking at 2 or 3 months as opposed to realistically maybe 6 or 8 months for a playground that would get use. You know, we're not going to be out there having seen kids in, you know, December, January, and February.
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at 500,000 for a splash pad, you're halfway to a synthetic field. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of silly. But I guess maybe in December when we all get together and we have more members, I think it might be interesting to bring that up as an agenda item to kind of figure out, I guess, what the next step might be and how we want to express formally our thoughts on this.
Well,
So
also,
we don't have a quorum today, right? Do we have a
We
quorum?
do. We have 4. Yeah, we have Paul, Steve, Chris, Josh. Yeah.
Okay.
but also just keep in mind that it's going to be on this November 17th at
Right.
this town meeting.
Oh, that's true too.
I think we have to get together earlier than that.
Maybe Steve, we might want to put something, if we can try to get together maybe next Wednesday for, 15, 20 minutes or something. I don't know if that's doable.
Might not be, well, I suppose it would be enough time for Ruth to do it, but
It seems like it's a little, so a week from today would be the 11th and then you're backing up right on it.
Would it be appropriate for us to attend the meeting and just mention that we're a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission, but as a resident of Yarmouth and being on the commission, we've discussed this at meetings and we feel that just very simply, our priority is for the handicapped all-inclusive playground over the splash pad. And just keep it to that. I mean,
I feel like we can. I just think the challenge is I don't think anything's going to change. Like, I don't think they're going to hear us and say, okay, we're going to take phase 1 off the vote for CPA. So it's almost like we have to, okay, if we have that point of view, it's almost like, well, then what's the ask? Is it just that we want our, thoughts to be heard and we just want to express it formally? Like, what's the end game, as a commission? What exactly do we want? What's the point of us expressing it? And just to make sure that they know that.
well, I think the point is
meeting,
that the town has the residents that don't have the background of discussions that we've had.
Sure.
Just to make sure that they're aware that we're putting this first. We're putting the
Yeah.
pleasure of a few for a period of several months over something that we think would be more helpful to underserved populations for a longer period of time.
Sure.
Just so that they have that information.
Yeah.
Say,
Yep.
okay, if you're gonna do the splash pad, if you vote for that now, the chances of our all-inclusive playground might be diminished.
Yeah.
In the next go round. I'd rather have it done sooner rather than later. And not say we don't support a splash pad altogether, although we may. That just to say that this is our preference and this is the reason why.
Mhm.
And keep it simple.
Okay.
is the town meeting virtual or live?
It's live.
It'll be at Matikes?
Outside or something?
No, I mean, they did it in the summer, spring, or whatever you want to call it, in June.
Yeah.
They open up the, they open up the gym and the auditorium, and they have room for, I think, anywhere for, I think, between 200 and 300 people. So using like all the way back, social distancing and stuff like that. So they didn't get that many last time, so they probably don't anticipate it again. So, I mean,
I'd like to see us as a commission, a formal letter going both to the selectmen and to be read before the town on that and list our, our complaints, or not our complaints, but what we don't like about the splash pad as opposed to the playground. I mean, I don't know if we can do that if we have another meeting or we just decide to do it now.
Steve, I would just say from a messaging standpoint, I think it might be in our best interest to say, like, specifically, I think the issue we have is with the ordering of it. Like, from a commission standpoint, our priority, like, we really feel like there should be an inclusive playground, and just formally, we feel like that should be a phase 1, like that should be the priority, and to let that be known that, that's really our belief. Like, I think we have to be very laser specific on what exactly the issue we have is.
So did I hear right that at a previous meeting, someone mentioned maybe, I don't know if my memory serves me well, but that we may be in violation of what's the name of the advocacy group or governmental groups that are in favor?
ADA
ADA requirements to
for the
have,
splash pad?
well, for an all-inclusive playground. We still fall a little short with that. And so by not having a playground that is more,
I
meets
see
the
what you're
ADA
saying.
requirements for all-inclusive,
yeah,
we're putting that to the side and maybe losing opportunity for grant funding or future support. You know
So
what
I
I mean?
think, yeah, so I think the issue was that we don't have technically an entire playground in the town of Yarmouth that has been approved as, ADA compliant or what, whatever that definition is. And I don't think it's one of those things where we necessarily have to, but to your point, Paul, it would be in our best interest to get on the right side of it.
Well, and really what it is you don't have to have,
It's not legally mandated.
well, so every playground technically has to be ADA compliant, and that was a law that was a couple years ago. Now, most towns and a lot of obviously old playgrounds aren't compliant. They really aren't. When I was in Plymouth, we technically got sued for all 13 of our playgrounds because we weren't ADA compliant. Really, and what that entails is what you guys pretty much did to Homer when you kind of upgraded a little bit a couple years ago?
Sure, yeah.
You made that pathway out, right? So that made Homer ADA compliant, right? It has to have a pathway, a hard surface to all their components. I don't believe that every single one of our playgrounds have it, and that's a thing that a lot of towns have. Now, when you're talking about doing a brand new, mostly everyone is doing the poured hard surface across the whole playground. And especially if it's going to be billed as an inclusive one, that's what you'd be doing, and that's why the cost is way up. So that's kind of really where that law is, and that's been in effect for a couple years now. And it's someone gets a hold of it, they, like I said, it happened in Plymouth. We got our sued for every playground, and we had to go out and automatically make those fixes like you guys did at Homer a couple years ago at every single one of our playgrounds. So,
Okay.
So
I
it
guess
would be great if we had an advocate, a mother or a father of a child with disabilities, developmental disabilities, speak up at a town meeting and state that they feel like their son or daughter's recreational activity needs are being neglected by the town. Not to the point where they got to sue, but that they really want equal attention and provided for their kids. And I've long ago been associated with similar advocacy groups, Association for Retired Citizens is what they still call themselves, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And there's nothing more powerful than advocates, especially mothers, who speak up for the needs of their deceased children in the case of drunk driving, or from their kids who are seeking healthy activities and not being able to pursue them. So, I mean, that's ideal, and I'm sure we have people like that in the town. Maybe they will show up and speak their piece.
So what's the ask here? So Steve, you had mentioned from a personal standpoint, are we going to show up to the meeting and just voice our formal opinion on it? I think that's really the decision that's before us right now, correct?
Yeah.
And I think, Paul, that would be a good idea if we could have yourself, and if there are other members of the community that would want to go and voice their formal opinion at that meeting. I think that's great, because again, I think we need to be laser focused. I technically don't think I know we're not gonna be able to change the ordering of this, but I feel like we just have to let, the town and the residents know, kind of where we stand on it formally, just so that it's out there that, we're working. And technically, if we fast forward to the spring, I think we're doing that now because, as Paul, you put it, we don't want the momentum to drop when we get out in the spring and now they're voting on the new article for the inclusive playground. We want them to remember that we spoke about it in the fall, so that they'll be all excited about it. And I think that that's really if we laser focus on it, that's really the end game, I think, for us to get up in front of them, in a couple of weeks.
I'm surprised that they can still have public meetings with that size. Now, with Governor
See,
Baker's
yeah.
new guidelines, isn't that gonna be?
Yeah, we'll
I even heard that
see.
if you're gonna play golf, it's starting Friday, I think you have to wear a mask while you're playing,
Yeah.
as an example. So things are getting stricter. I
Yeah.
personally don't feel comfortable in a public gathering. That's why I drove across country, didn't get
Well,
in a
maybe
plane.
they'll do a Zoom. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, they should. And, I wouldn't mind speaking in a Zoom. I'm not, both my wife and I are cancer survivors. We're doing great, but we still have that risk. And as far as a public gathering, even with masks, and it's hard for me to imagine 300 people socially distancing in that space safely. I'm just not crazy about public meetings. I don't go into bars, restaurants. I
Sure.
can't get my gym membership. I just don't want to take the chance.
So from a commission standpoint, do we just individually, do we just want to draft like maybe an individual statement about it, and we'll just prepare to read that at the town meeting?
I think so.
I mean, I think that's the point for this one here. Okay. Perfect. All right. Moving along, director's items.
Yeah, so we had our Halloween event. It was fantastic. We sold out 225 cars, just under
Nice.
600 kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long day. Thank God the weather broke on Friday.
Yeah.
It was a little chilly, but I mean, they were lined up at 3:00 out there, and it was just it was good. I mean, I can nitpick on my side of the things that I would want to go better, but overall, we got a lot of positive feedback. I think ultimately, not all 225 cars showed up, but I think gave out about just around 500 of our activity bags. So I'm talking like 500 kids. Over 20,000 pieces of candy were given out. It was a great, safe, COVID safe community event. So, really, really happy with it, and thankful for all the donors and our volunteers that showed up and stuff. And it was a fun day.
Perfect.
Fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's
Great.
good job.
So, so that was that. Right now, we are doing what we can programming. We're actually staying outside. Obviously, the school gyms are not usable for the obvious reasons. So I'm actually running basketball on Saturdays, November and December right now. We filled in like a day. And that'll take place at Homer Park. We're doing tennis again. We're doing soccer, karate. So we're kind of just staying outside, hoping the weather stays. I mean, this weekend it's supposed to be almost 70 degrees. So just trying to do what we can and offer some type of programs for the community, and just kind of taking it day by day, seeing how it's going to change, so, but people are really receptive to the programs if it's doable. So even outside, as they say, dress the kids a little warm and they'll be out there.
So Amy, if you get a chance to talk to your peers around Massachusetts or even nationally, because I know we've attended conferences in the past, what's going on in our state and other states? I mean, everybody's kind of struggling with the similar issues, right? Anything different that you've heard about that we could possibly do to fill these gaps in a safe way, or we're all struggling, I think, but.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's everywhere you go, it's different. I mean, some states have the different restrictions and stuff. So, but for Mass, I meet with the Cape and Islands, all those departments. We met about a week or two ago, and everyone's, even there, it's so different. I would say half of them ran no summer programs, and, half did. So I think it depends on what facilities you have, but I do know that we all talked about trying to run stuff outside for as long as we can, and just adapting and hoping that the weather is with us. And then it just depends on what facilities you have. I mean, you have Barnstable, who has their own facility. You have Chatham, who has their own facility. So they can do a little bit more, which is fantastic for them. But for the towns like us that don't have any of our own facilities, and I mean, we have flax, so we'll try and use that. I mean, we'll have karate in there, and we'll use that as much as we can. But even with Flax, it's not huge. So you're talking, 8 to 10 kids max for whatever program that we do, can do in there too. So I know numerous other departments are running basketball outside, so it's, we're all in the same boat, but different boat too, because it just kind of depends on, what facilities they have and what their admin will let them and not let them do. I mean, some of them wanted to run stuff and their admin, didn't want them to. But it's, I think everyone's just trying to be creative and stay busy and relevant. So.
Mhm. Great. Budgets, any other director items?
We're in the budget process right now for next year. So nothing, we haven't really received much information on, we're assuming level funded, if not a cut, but we haven't really gotten much information on that. So right now we're just moving forward kind of level funded, from my knowledge. And that'll be due November, but we're on track right now to be okay for what we have left for this fiscal year, to be able to pay Ruth's salary through these programs and stuff that we're doing right now. That's helping a lot. And, just trying to not spend any type of money whatsoever to make it through. So.
And Ruthie is still with us.
Ruthie's still with us.
I apologize for being out of touch, but I did drive 6,000 miles to the West Coast across country, which was an interesting experience, and 3,000 miles home. That's, geez, it was 90 hours of driving and 6,000 miles. So we took our time, but and some of the meetings we had, I was actually literally driving the car, trying to find the next hotel. But I apologize for just being out. I try to make as many meetings as I can, and
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere for a while, but
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. So.
yeah.
I'm on right now with the meeting.
But
So I can't talk to you. So you can
where
jump
we're
on.
at. So, you guys have any questions about anything?
Bye.
No, I mean, I think that was a good update. I don't have any other additional questions there.
Debbie just called. She didn't know there was a meeting tonight.
Okay.
She's gonna be on in 10 minutes when we're done.
Okay,
Okay?
perfect.
Yep.
Any further director items? Amy, I appreciate the update.
No.
I have to echo Paul's feeling about the fact that what are we doing if they're not going to listen to us on anything we say? What's the point of us being? I just have to echo what Paul said. It's very frustrating.
At a very minimum, I would have expected some sort of a reply to our concerns and an explanation of why they chose to do what they chose to do. And I think we dodged a bullet. I didn't hear of any outbreaks. But if you listen to the science and they tell you these are the safe guidelines, and then we don't follow those, I think we left ourselves open. And it kept some people from, going to the beach. I think the police and our staff, Amy, did a great job managing the weekend crowds at the beaches in a safe way and shutting them down when it got to be overcrowded, because the one thing we couldn't control was the walk-ins. And when there was a surge of walk-ins, even though there were some empty spots, they had the wisdom to say, okay, enough is enough. We don't think that they're safely distanced. But I mean, the rule of thumb was 6 feet. The selectmen was 10 feet at the beach, and they chose to go with 6 feet. And then with the generic, let's fill it up. And I think it was a financial decision they made, and it wasn't necessarily in the interest of public health. But despite that, everybody did a great job of accommodating, and I don't think there were negative consequences as a result. But we put some thought into recommending what we thought was the best way to go. But I don't think it came back to bite us. We were fortunate, and it could have. I'm a member of the Sons of Erin, and there's been a little bit of an outbreak there. And I love going to the Suns for music, but they don't have music now. Somebody went positive the other day, and now staff who work there were tested positive. And, you know, I think we get into a false sense of complacency on the Cape because we're in a pretty safe place. There's a reason why people are choosing to move out of the cities and come down to the Cape, because it's almost like a safe haven, and real estate is going through the roof. But I think we can easily fall into this. Well, I don't know anybody that's come down with it.
So let me ask you this,
from it.
Paul, is the ask here that we're looking for the selectmen maybe to meet with us and to kind of tell us what, or kind of explain to us what they see the role of our commission being? Because I think one thing we're seeing is a pattern here where, you know, as a commission, we're coming up with some ideas and recommendations, but it just seems like it's falling on deaf ears. And maybe that's a conversation we have with the selectmen.
I think that's a great idea, Josh. I mean, just saying, you know, how can we serve you better? What can we do to give, you know, do some research, give information and some collective concerns based on what we hear from the community and our own experience, and to share that with you. But I think rather than, I don't feel like there's a connection. So I think a meeting, you know, requesting a meeting between the Recreation Commission and the selectmen, or a group of, maybe not all the selectmen, but as many as can attend, would be a step in the right direction. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think we're losing possibly did Mark Forrest get elected as the county commissioner, or wasn't he was a champion of
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation, right? And he was on the committee at one time back in the day.
Yeah.
I always found him, but I don't know all the selectmen very well, but he impressed me when he came to a couple of our meetings. And so what's his status, I guess is what I'm asking. Is he still a selectman? Is he a county commissioner?
I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
Because I
sure.
know he was running for office, but.
Yeah. I don't know if he can do both. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I would say too,
champion.
you know, just making, you know, at these, you know, weekly selectmen's meetings too, it's when stuff comes up, I think it's going to the public comment and just being, whether it's, you know, being seen or even emailing, you know, on your positions and stuff, because is it getting to them? You know, I don't know. So I know that that's been talked about a lot, like, oh, we'll go to the meeting at public comment and we'll talk, but and I know that, you know, the last 7 months has been crazy and a lot of it was, you know, Zoom and COVID and stuff. But I think too, maybe getting back to that, you know, to just making, like you just said, making your point more known to them.
I'd be happy with an annual or semi-annual virtual meeting with them, because, you know, if I was an administrator, I'd want to know what my committees are doing, what they're thinking about, and how we can work together. And I don't think there's been any of that, or very little, where they proactively seek our input and validate that. Because I want to feel like we're making a difference. And, you know, I think we do, irrespective of a great relationship with the board of selectmen, I think we do a pretty good job. But I don't think we get a chance to share a lot with them beyond just their meetings. I think I would go with a recommendation of a special meeting just to catch up and how can we work together.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, it's your idea. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, just from a messaging standpoint, I think we would get the most mileage if we positioned it as, you know, selectmen, how can we provide you the most value? Like, as a recreation commission, if we say, what can we do for you? If we position it like that, I think we'll get them to talk more and they'll be more forthcoming with how we can help them. And we can back that up with, well, the reason we're asking that question is because we feel like as a commission, you know, we've thought about and come up with some different positions and some different ideas, i.e. inclusive playgrounds, i.e. the distancing on the beach. It doesn't seem like you're, you know, utilizing our thoughts that, you know, that in that respect, you know, how can we be a better value to you? And if we can position it like that, I think you'll get more mileage.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that second part would come up organically. I wouldn't promote it as that.
Exactly.
We've got some concerns about efficacy of our existence. I would just say, yeah, we'd like to meet together. And then during the meeting, we won't be shy about bringing up how can we better serve you? They should be doing that with different commissions.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Anyway, it should be
Yeah.
them seeking us out,
yeah,
but I think we can improve the relationship.
sure.
And a lot of it depends on the individual. So that's what I'm thinking. Did we lose one of our best champions with Mark not being a selectman anymore? I don't think he is.
Yeah,
I think he got, I didn't read the whole, I've been so concerned about the national politics. I didn't look at Massachusetts or local politics and find it to be chosen to be on the board of county commissioners in Barnstable or what. I think he was certainly a candidate,
Sure.
and I have to look and see.
yeah. So maybe we can use that as an excuse for this whole thing, with everything, with things up in the air, and it's a good time to reconnect, and maybe we can use
Yeah,
that as a
let's try
kind
to
of a
do that.
wedge.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Dennis resigns from the board when he finds out that the splash pad went forward. He was adamant about it not going forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he educated me a lot about his
Yeah.
concerns, and I listened to him. I said, he's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other commissioner items?
I could make a motion.
You're going to do it, Steve. What is your motion?
I think we should adjourn this meeting.
Uh,
At the next meeting.
Well, I think that sounds good. I'm going to second it, but I think the rules of the virtual meetings, we're going to have to go one by one. So I guess,
I'll second that motion.
okay. So Dennis, you're in. Chris, what's your yay or nay?
Okay, yay.
Josh is a yay. And Steve, obviously you're a yay. So we're good. Perfect.
So a next meeting date.
So
Calendar.
December is what you're talking, right? Sorry,
Yep.
let me pull that up. Well, the second Wednesday would be December 9th. Does that work for everyone?
Me.
So
Man.
December 9th.
Getting to the end of the year. This is crazy.
Yeah,
All right.
perfect.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you,
All
See you
right.
guys.
Thank you,
Have a good
Andy.
one, guys.
Guys, appreciate it.
Later. Yeah, we'll see you later. Bye now.